Have you heard the one where I up and moved to Florida from New Jersey? All right, so that happened, and I am now here in Florida, and I don't regret a bit of it, but it was a 3-year process for me. So it started in the COVID era. I don't know if you guys heard of this time frame, but there was something called the COVID, and I was having a hard time. I was on the opposite side of the coin, not really fearful of the virus, but more fearful of like where the world was going. I was not seeing eye to eye with a lot of my past friends. I was constantly crying. And even like Shannon like called me and I was like in the closet, well, the pantry, just crying. I was coming up into realizing the world was a lot of lies. I also, was realizing that a lot of my past was based on lies. So, like, this had become full circle to where I was starting to really start to realize that everything I knew and everything I believed in was shifting. I was spiritually bankrupt. I didn't have really any kind of feel anymore. I used to at least, I was like going like to psychics and I was going to like past life regression or whatever. It just wasn't cutting it. I was not where I thought I should be. And I remember just all of the COVID stuff was playing right into my spirituality. I was done. I just had nothing. So about this time, my husband realized he could work wherever. And, we did a little vacation to Florida and we were walking and I remember he very, boldly came out and said, we should just move to Florida. And I was like, that's hilarious because I thought he was joking. And I didn't think much about it, but he was indeed serious. From that point, it took me about 3 years to catch up to him. But he's always been one of those, like, let's just do it. And we're enough to get us through. And it happened when I moved from Weehawken to Asbury Park. I was like, I can't do it. I was fine, and I loved it. And now he was wanting to urge me to move forward again. And it took me a little bit longer to get on board. But we decided that we wanted to live at least 2 hours or no more than 2 hours away from my in-laws because they're amazing. And they were in Florida. So we were looking at this, radius about 2 hours distance of where we could live. I knew that my Pilates instructor and mentor and friend, Carol, lived in Sarasota and she loved it. So I'm like, well, I know somebody. Let's look at Sarasota. So we were looking into Sarasota, really loving it. And I remember going, when I was living in Shark River Hills, to one of my friends that was like in my circle. We weren't that close, but we were fighters for freedom and we were, cool moms. And so we went, for the first time to go eat dinner at her house, just for fun. And she's like, oh, just so we're moving to Sarasota. And we were like, oh my goodness. So now she was definitely moving to Sarasota. I knew someone in Sarasota that I loved and adored. So now we've got two solids. All right, let's look at Sarasota. And that's what we did. So we got an Airbnb and we rented it for like the month of like August, which, was like boot camp because it's the heat. And I'm like, if we can get through this, we can get through anything. And that's what I did. I prayed to the universe, even though I was feeling very spiritually bankrupt. I'm like, look, I didn't ask for it to be easy. I did ask though, can you make it feel like as if I were living here already? Like, make me feel like what it's going to be like to live here. And boy, did that happen. Well, Janelle, one of my close friends from my past, like way back, we used to dance together. We kind of lost touch here and there, but Sarasota was one of her favorite places. And she's like, I'm going to come to Sarasota while you're there during the month. I could show you around. she could be my cheerleader for Sarasota because she was like, go for it. And so she came for about a week, her and her son, and it was perfect timing. I was in Sarasota with Josh and Max, of course, and we were living, and I was just feeling so empty and so lost. And I remember her sitting me down and telling me that she was, praying with her friends at church for me. And I think the first words that came out of my mouth were "F you," um, mostly because, like, well, I don't understand. Why are people praying for me? Like, I didn't get it. Like, I'm fine. I'm cool. Whatever. And then I just started bawling. I started to realize how dark I had gotten, how lost I had been. And like she confessed, later on, now that we're, talking so much, that she didn't know how she was going to go about this, but she really, really needed to reach out to me and help me and lend me that hand. And I really needed it. So this all happened. This was starting to shift my outlook in some way. But then life hit. Exactly what I asked for. So Max wasn't eating. He was having, I figured out later that it was like a jaw thing, and he wasn't able to swallow. Anything that was protein, wasn't able to swallow. So anything that could dissolve in his mouth, he was fine, but he wasn't really eating. So along this time I took him out, he passes out. Like, I've never seen anything like this, in him before. Back, down. I was behind him, I caught him, we were at the not the planetarium, the fish, whatever, the fishes, the aquarium. Yeah, aquarium. We were at the aquarium. It was like an inside outside thing. And of course it's August. It was hot. And and when he passed out, oh my gosh, my heart like just stopped. And this realization of what's important. And then everyone there was like so kind. Like the stranger gave me water. The turtles are watching us, because we're like at turtle level. I don't know, like there was just a window and the turtles were like watching us. And it was surreal. It was just something that I never want to have to deal with again, but hopefully nobody else ever has to watch their child pass out. We got through that. Then Josh gets hit with diverticulitis for the first time. So he didn't know, he thought he had got food poisoning. He's laying in bed. He's, running a fever, and we're like, and he's just writhing in pain. We're like, we don't know what's going on. Take him to the hospital, and they're like, oh, this is really bad. He's going to have surgery, and this, this is nuts. You should have brought him in sooner, blah, blah, blah. And luckily we had Janelle, so like she could watch the boy, and I was running around like a lunatic. I remember dropping them off at the beach and letting them have their day because I had to go to the hospital. I had to go back and forth. And I remember having to get back to them to pick them up after being at the hospital. And there was this gas leak in a circle, like a circle that I had to get to the beach. I only had my phone to get around, and I didn't know how to navigate Sarasota. I was very new. And this gas leak wasn't reported to Waze. So Waze kept having me go around and around and around. And I was like, I don't know how to get out of this cycle. I don't know how to get out of this circle. And I remember I just pulled into a parking lot and I lost it. This was bottom. This was it. I was screaming at God. I was yelling at him. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do this. I just can't do this. I can't do it anymore. And I lost my cool. And so I got my breath together, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna drive. And I drive this one like downtown, and I hit traffic, and there's cones there. There's just cones blocking a way that was the way to get out. And I remember the guy in front of me, he just gets out of the car and moves the cones. That's Florida. That's very much Florida. So we get out and we get up onto the road, and I make it there, and I'm fine. And I get there, and I'm talking, and I get the kids, and I'm getting Janelle, and I kind of tell her what is going on. And, she prays for me, and things kind of shift and move. And then I remember I had to get all the things that the hospital needed because they thought they had to have surgery. And for some reason, they don't do faxes. They had to have the CD-ROM from way over there where he had the MRI and the CAT scan or whatever he did. So I had to drive in Florida storms, and buckets were coming and buckets were coming, and I couldn't see 2 feet in front of me, and I had to go do that, and I had to come back, and I was losing it again, and I just kept hitting these weird, crazy roadblocks, and then I broke my phone, and I was like, oh, the only way that the hospital can get in touch with me is through my phone, and it broke. Nobody can call me. Nobody can see, I can't see where I'm going. Nobody can get in touch with me. So my father-in-law takes my phone. He goes and gets it fixed, one of those screen fixers, and he brings it back, and I break it again. I was like, oh, thank you. All right, this is it. This is perfect. This is exactly what I asked for. And so while everything what happened, and we got through it all, that final day, there was this rainbow. And I know it's Florida and there's rainbows everywhere, but it just showed me I didn't hate Sarasota for going through that. I didn't despise this place and not want to move here. I got through it, and I had this feeling of like power and success that, I got thrown some major curveballs. Josh got curveballs, Max got curveballs, and me as this mother got through it. So I said, all right, let's do it. Took another year because I loved my home in New Jersey. I loved my friends. I was comfortable. And then I figured out that it wasn't so much comfort as complacency. I wasn't moving forward. Everything that I had that was holding me to New Jersey started to dissolve. I had this great job at a wellness center, gone. Max had this great pod for homeschool, dissolved. So everything where I'm like, I can't move. I have this, that, and the other, disbanded. So we were leaving, and it was time, and Max wasn't so on board, and he's given us grief, and I'm like wavering, but Josh was strong. Josh was like, this is going to be the best thing for our family, and it was. But driving away from our home for the last time, I got, this urge to be like, oh, I was just thinking like, what are we going to do tomorrow in homeschool, or what are we going to do tomorrow for Max? I'm going to meet up with Kim. When somebody dies and you pick up the phone to go call them and you have this like existential like breakdown. Yeah, that's what happened to me. And I all at once realized the concept of moving, and I had a panic attack that I have not had a panic attack since I was in my teens. And, well, I guess maybe my 20s. It was intense. It was right out of our block, like right out of our neighborhood. Josh pulls over. I sit on somebody's grass, and I'm just trying to ground myself. Didn't think to pray. I just started to breathe, and the two boys just looked on to me in panic as well. Like, what the heck's wrong with Mom? I got it together. And I realized that this was happening. So how did things shift? How did things move? How did I come around? How did Max come around? Well, for me, Janelle didn't give up on me. Janelle kept out on me, and she pushed me, requested, put out there that we could do the Bible recap together. Bible recap was basically you read the Bible and then you listen to this podcast. This podcast was Bible recap, and it's Tara Lee, and she's awesome and cool. And I tried Bible in Catholic school, but it was not like this. So I did the New Testament with her starting in October of when I moved, 2023. And being in the Bible or being in the Word and then having somebody explain it to me started to open things up to me, and I started to see things differently. All the fear started to melt away, and like purpose started to like creep in, and I started to pray, and all of my old ways started to go. Anything I held on to that did not serve me back in New Jersey, I just let it go. And that's where we are today. And I mean, I guess I could have been in New Jersey and being stagnant, but the amount of growth and connection that I've had here, it has shown me that, and don't let my husband know this, but he was right. He was right. So I'm very happy that we moved.